I want to talk about Friday because we got to see somebody play who there has been a lot of animosity and a lot of differing viewpoints about this guy. But Emoni Bate had a 30-point performance against Michigan, and I know me and Brody saw some of it.
Bro was wildin'.
It was a electric performance, and they were playing at Little Caesars Arena in Detroit, which is where the Pistons play, and it looked like a packed house. So I think that what Emoni did in front of that crowd and against a Power 5 team who's ranked as well, I think he really showed some of his skill set. But Jake, how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I'm sure he saw those NBA lights in the Detroit Pistons arena and just thought, this is where I thought I should have been coming into this NBA regular season. Obviously, Bates not a one and done last year, but I mean, if he continues to drop 30 like this for Eastern Michigan, we may see him putting up buckets in that arena on a regular basis in the NBA.
Let's talk about the way my man was playing. He was just, it was like every other drive, he was just clapping to his players, gimme ball, grabs it, couple dribbles, step back three, and he would just drain them all. He was going crazy.
And he really showed last year why he was one of the top recruits and why him going to Memphis was considered such a big deal at the time. I mean, he was hitting shots off handoffs, shots off the dribble, deep step back threes, and there's some heat checks where you were like, Emoni, what are you doing, bro? And then he just swishes it like it was nothing. So I think he really showed why, he was such a high talent, and I think it's possible he can raise his stock throughout the season.
And how do you guys see him right now? Do you guys see him as a guy who, is that enough for you guys, or do you guys need to see a little bit more throughout this season to be really convinced of the Emoni Bates comeback story, I would call it?
Well, I think that obviously it is very early into the season. Like at this point, I think it was maybe his second game of the year. But I mean, if this is kind of a consistent performance that we see the rest of the year, obviously he's not going to average 30. Although you never know. At Eastern Michigan, I know the MAC is good, but Emoni Bates is a very highly talented player, and I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of resembles what we saw of Isaiah Mosley last year at Missouri State and just becomes one of these guys in the non-Power 5 schools that could put up 30 points or put up 40 points in a big win.
Yeah, but I do want to point out another thing, because after that performance, I was really excited to see, what other teams he's going to play against. And I was looking at Eastern Michigan's schedule, and unfortunately, they're not playing any other Power 5 schools for the rest of the season. So I'm like, man, it kind of sucks. But at the same time, I still think Eastern Michigan is going to be a fun team to watch, just because it's not only Emoni, but they have Noah Farrakhan, who in high school, he was a highly touted recruit as well. He was pretty viral all over Instagram, or not all over Instagram, all over YouTube. Well, I guess Instagram too, social media. And he was a player who would every game just get a nasty poster. And I think that we saw how dangerous this duo is just because nobody could stay in front of Noah last night. And I think that come March, this might be a team that we could see upset.
And in March, like you said, we've seen a lot of these group of 5 schools have some success against bigger, Power 5 schools. And if Emoni Bates is dominating like this, it's pretty clear why Eastern Michigan is one of the favorites for the MAC.
Yeah. I think, too, that depending on how well Emoni does, well, not just Emoni, but Eastern Michigan, and he really takes up that leadership role, I feel like this can really help him improve his draft stock. I think right now, just off the talent alone I saw in that Michigan game, I think it's possible he can still be a first rounder. But depending how the season goes, I don't think he can get back to where he was, maybe like top 5-ish. But I think he can get to the lottery, and I think that'd be pretty big for him.
And I don't know how much you guys want to go into it, but I know you were, unless you had something, we're talking a little bit about maybe some ego concerns once he actually makes it to the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, just so far in his career, he's really been that number one option, like on every single team that he's been on. And I mean, I'm just thinking about rosters right now. Like if he did go as a one and done last year, well, obviously he wasn't eligible for the draft last year, I believe, so he couldn't have done that. But let's say he goes this year, I still don't think he would be like that number one option on any NBA team right now. Like we think Victor Wembanyama could be in this draft, which is kind of crazy to think about because a couple of years ago when Victor was on the rise, it was kind of Bates and Wembanyama kind of neck and neck for that number one pick. And now Emoni has taken a nosedive in terms of draft stock since then.
Another thing, like Jake said, I do think his attitude will be something to watch and kind of his mindset. just because I think it's reasonable to look at that considering the things that have happened in the past. I don't want to bring them up and kind of tarnish his name, but I think another thing from a basketball standpoint too that we really want to see is just how he develops as a player from last year. Because whether you think he was in a situation that doesn't work or whether you don't agree with how he was playing, I feel like it kind of doesn't matter if he doesn't show any development. And I think I talked about in my video a while back, one of the things that I wanted to see was his development as a playmaker and as a defender. And from a defending standpoint, I really liked what we saw in that Michigan game because there were some plays where he really sat down, guarded, and changed some shots. And I still didn't see that playmaking that I was really hoping to see, but there's still time throughout the season. And honestly, I'm not putting that pressure on him. It's just something that I think would really help expand his game.